Southwest Louisiana, and welcome to another episode of From Change to Change. I'm Marcus Chachi Simmons, and this is my co-host,
Dr. Matthew Green here.
Dr. Matthew Green. And so today's episode, guys, is going to be about a subject that is so sensitive, I would say, because it's dealing with our juveniles. And, you know, in this age, we understand that our juveniles are, they're already in a lot of...
They're going through a lot. They're going through a lot already, and they are having to face a world that is constantly changing. It's different than when many of us were kids. Yes. And I think everybody, right, adults and kids, are trying to figure out how to navigate through this.
Right.
Today we want to talk specifically about something coming up in Louisiana. There was a legislative session last year that brought about a couple of really, really important proposed constitutional amendments. Now, to clarify for people at home, the Constitution has not been changed yet. There is an election in March that is, March 29th, people get to decide whether they want to change the Constitution. And it's really important because there's some stuff specifically affecting the kids of Louisiana.
Specifically.
Mm-hmm. And so what we're going to talk about today is specifically Act 3. And Act 3 is changing the state constitution to change the age of kids that can be tried in adult court, in the adult court system. And then 2, which offenses. Right now, Louisiana has only a very few, the worst cases get tried in adult court. But now they're wanting to expand it so that potentially almost any felony case could be tried in adult court.
Right.
And I think that has really, really big impact and possibly really big consequences for the children of Louisiana.
Right.
And for the folks here at home, right, like this is one of the reasons Marcus and I are sitting up here is we're both parents. Right?
Both parents.
Ironically, when we started this show, right, like we both couldn't say that. I'm a first-time dad, but we're both now parents, and we are not only in this work for all of Louisiana in criminal justice reform, but we're also in this work because it's personal to us.
It's personal. It's home. It's home. Right. Mm-hmm. Right. So I would like to say that back when we had the crime session, when they originally changed the legislation, they had it where kids could be tried as an adult from the age of 17 is what they passed.
Reversed the raise the age.
And there were like 15 crimes that they, specifically about 15 crimes that they said could require a kid to be charged as an adult.
Correct.
And they were mostly violent. They were violent crimes, or let's say something attempted violent crime, if that's, something like that. And this new law that's being proposed, it's so critical to where if this is passed, we have to understand and read the fine prints that they are going to be able to charge a child starting at the age of 14 as an adult for shoplifting. For the 15 charges are out the window now. So for any charges, a child can be charged as an adult, a child. And you hear how that sounds? A child.
And I think that's really important to keep this framing of children is who we're talking about, because you're going to see a lot of ads and a lot of people talking about, well, these aren't really children. They could be adults. They look like adults. And it's like, no, they're not. They're children.
They're children.
Anybody who has met me, you can't see it behind the camera, but I'm a very big person. I'm 6'5". I have been tall and I've been big since I was young, since I was a child, right? But that didn't change that I was a child.
Right.
You know, that didn't
Right.
change
Right.
who I was
Right.
just because I was big in stature.
Right.
And I think it's always just so strange that that's used as an argument for what somebody should be an adult in that sense.
And in this age, you know, given the poison in the food and I mean, all we eating today, our children eat today is food with no nutritional value. So these kids so that's not even an argument because it's very few of them that are big kids. If you look around, most kids are really small, really skinny, really thin, really frail looking. You know, so that shouldn't even be any kind of justification when people are thinking about.
But going back to what you were saying about any crime, and I think, or any offense, I think this is really important for people at home to recognize. And our deputy director Bruce Riley brought this up on his podcast. People use language in Louisiana of crimes of violence, felony crimes of violence, and that's even written in the Louisiana Code. But not everything in there is actually involving violence, right? And so I think one of the big differences that we see is there's a difference, and one of the consequences we see for kids is there's a difference between the adult criminal justice system and the youth criminal justice system. Right. And one of the big aspects of that is the youth system is designed to rehabilitate. It's designed to be restorative. It's designed around education services. It's designed around mental health services. In the adult system, they don't pay as much attention to that, you know?
Right.
And so we don't talk about the burden that this amendment, Act 3, would put on the system as we have it now. Right. The state of Louisiana is finally spending millions of dollars to create more youth facilities to hopefully better serve youth, even though we would like to see much of that, fewer youth in facilities. But it's going to create double the burden on many of the adult facilities because for those of you who don't know, anybody under the age of 18 has to be out of sight and sound from the adult population.
Right. That's right.
And so you were just saying before we came on that you're going to have a prison inside of a prison.
That's right. That's right. And in an environment where we're already understaffed, where the complaint is that we're understaffed, so then you're going to have 2 prisons, and you're going to have staff divided because the juveniles are going to have to be segregated, or I'd say confined in solitary confinement because they can't even. They shouldn't. I haven't seen anything written in the law that says that they can be in view of adult prisoners.
Yeah,
I haven't. That's something I haven't seen.
And that's actually
a
federal issue. And so one of the things with Louisiana just dealt with this a couple of summers ago when they took the youth and put them in Angola for a summer, and they lost. Louisiana lost that lawsuit. They said no, you cannot. Yes. They're in solitary confinement too often. You don't have the facilities because in youth facilities you have to have education. You have to have educational services. So essentially you're doubling both the facilities you need and the staff that you need.
You have to continue their education. You have to continue their growth. The state is then responsible for continuing these kids' growth.
So under Act 3, what you would essentially see is the state doubling what it's already doing. Instead of having just youth facilities for youth, you would have the youth facilities, and then you would have to create youth facilities at these adult prisons, which we talk about the impact on children, which is very, very important. It also means that those facilities where they're going to be housed at these adult prisons aren't going to be available for housing the adults who are there. No. And so you're going to have issues of overcrowding, fewer resources being available. What are some of the consequences that you would see with that?
That's right. Shortage of staff. Shortage of staff. I mean, if the staff can't watch everything 24 hours a day like they're supposed to, if they can't monitor everything, I was in prison. When I was in prison, it was probably overstaffed, right? Years ago when I was in there, and everything still happened under the sun. Every single thing that you can imagine, all the stories that you heard, I witnessed it. It happened with adequate staff. So just think what's going to happen to
Yeah.
these kids who can't even defend themselves if staff just make one mistake and these kids can't even defend themselves. Does that open up the door for lawsuits if something happened to these kids? Like, we have to really look at the broad picture of this.
And you know, at the end of the day, people don't want to have to, families don't want to have to rely on lawsuits. They don't want something to happen to their loved one.
Right.
And Marcus, you talk all the time, and I'm going to ask you again because I think we almost have to say it every episode. Like, what happens to somebody when they go into that environment, right? Because for some of these kids, they're going into an environment that's going to eat them alive. So what is happening to the children when they get put in this environment?
Well, the first thing that's going to happen is trauma begins. From the moment they get called, because when you're in the parish jail, you're around friends or people you know, and parish jail, unless it's like East Baton Rouge, something like that, parish jail is probably worse than prison. You know what I'm saying? But here I'm talking here from here in Lafayette.
Yep.
Everybody knows each other, because it's a little small environment. But once that call is made for you to pack your stuff because you're being transferred to DOC, that's when trauma sits in. That's when fear, that's when stress, depression, all of that stuff happens. And then when you get to the yard, the process of you getting established, they have to dress you out. They have to put you through a whole identity process where they're going to have to clothe you. They're going to have to figure out where you're going to be staying at. They're going to have to, and I'm talking about that's going to be real detrimental on these kids mentally, man. I remember my first day like it was yesterday.
Yep.
And I think I was I was young, but I was a man at the time. I was old enough, so these kids who felt some type of security in being young, once that security is stripped away, no mom, no dad, now you have to play by the rules of prison. You get a phone call. When you get your phone call, you have to, parish jails, you can be a bit disrespectful. When you get to prison, there's no more disrespecting. Everything that you learned, you have to unlearn and start all over again. Man, I'm telling you, these kids are going to be traumatized.
It's something especially if you're in parish jail, you're closer to family. Visitation is a little different because your family doesn't have to travel as far.
Yes, right.
We don't think about the consequences on family there.
Right.
And it's always interesting to me as somebody who works in both teacher education with schools, focused on children, focused on working with families to improve education, and knows a lot about the school to prison pipeline. The standard that we want youth facilities to have is based on what's called the Missouri model. And the Missouri model said youth and children need to be close to their families because that's going to help them when they are released from jail. That's what's going to help with the rehabilitation. That's what's going to be help with their reintegration with the community. That's what's going to help with them getting their feet under them. And everything about Act 3 seems counter to that. It says, no, we want to do what is worse for the rehabilitation. And I was reading some research just the other week when all of this was happening, and then the legislative session and this got passed, and there's countless amounts of research that children going into an adult criminal justice system are more likely to die. Like, think about that, right? More likely to die as a result of being in the adult system than the juvenile system. So in Louisiana, all too often are we too eager to sign people's death warrants.
Right. And them dying can be from pure clumsiness because they're a kid. Because they really don't understand what they're doing. They still don't have any foresight yet of consequence. and make a mistake that they're used to making while they were in the parish jail, and don't understand that's a completely different language. That's a completely different world.
Yeah. And so I want to also talk about this, sort of the effect of this, and thinking about the criminal legal system, because I don't think a lot of people at home know most of the convictions, and this is, I believe it's across the U.S., not just in Louisiana, actually come from plea deals rather than people going to trial.
Right.
And Marcus, you've talked about this before, and we bring it up and we talk about it. One of the ways plea deals work, and very often the way they work, is that a DA overcharges somebody and says, I'm taking you to court for
fear,
all these things, you know, and then they plead you down to get you to take a lesser conviction, but it's still a conviction.
Just for the conviction.
And I think one of the collateral consequences we're going to see from Act 3, one of the very negative collateral consequences I think we will see from Act 3, is you are going to see DAs overcharging children to try to get more and more plea deals, which are still going to be detrimental. And it's going to be a tool where you're going to see DAs overcharging everybody with these adults, or threatening to charge children as adults. And we just saw this in New Iberia just last year. And what the consequence of that for children is going to be drastic.
To force a plea, to force a plea deal. And, you know, and a lot of these kids, you know, parents have never been in trouble, probably, don't know how to navigate through this kind of, you know, this kind of problematic situation. So parents, so when a lawyer, and most likely it's going to be a public defender, let's keep it real, you know, because this is going to target basically, you know, impacted youth. Majority impact. Now, of course, a lot of people are going to get caught up in it, but this was directed toward inner city kids, right? Impacted youth. All right. So parents don't understand what's going on. So when the DA introduces, okay, you're being charged with this charge, that charge, this charge, that, and then when he comes and says, but look, if then the public defender comes and says, well, look, man, if you take 3 years on this charge, and to everyone that seems beautiful, even to you, even though you're the one that has to go do it, they just scared you into taking a conviction. Now, this is my point that I want to put out there. My overstanding of this bill is to replenish bodies into these empty beds, because we just recently had some bills passed that released a lot of people from Louisiana prisons. So, but most of these people were old people. They did their 20, 30, 40 years in the field. They can't work anymore. They're a liability because now you have to feed them, keep them alive with health care. So let's get them out the system. Now we need to refill those beds so that with these young people who can go to work for 50 years for free labor, and then we'll pass, then another law will come across and we release them, and then we'll find a way to refill these beds again. And that's what I think is happening here. And that's obvious. And anyone that doesn't see that, you're really not looking, or you need to, you know, your lens must be cracked.
Yeah, I always think it's always amazing the awful things we can do to each other, right? With the right motivation. Right. But Act 3, coming back to Act 3, March 29th, it's going to be on the ballots. This is, everybody make sure to look up what is going to be on the ballots, because there are going to be 4 constitutional amendments. We're only talking about the third one, Act 3, here today. And it really, really does affect children in Louisiana. And Marcus, I know you've said this many, many times, what it's like to be a kid just searching for a way out. A way out, right? Like, and that it's not that, you know, you purposefully chose the things you did. It was the only options. And there are so many kids who don't feel like they have options, who get caught. And we should be working to create a better way. A better way.
I like to say that no one wakes up and say, but today, because of the influence of social media, kids are literally waking up today deciding to be criminals. But that's because they don't understand the extent. They're only following, social media, I feel, has taken away individuality from people. Everyone today, all kids are becoming the same person. So we play follow the leader, especially here in Louisiana. We're behind time on everything. So we're playing follow the leader, right? Doing what the next person do, and not overstanding the extent of our errors. And I like to point out that, no one really wants to be a criminal. It's situations, circumstances that shapes the way a person thinks or feels, especially being impacted.
I always tell people, right, like you walk the path, very often you walk the path that's constructed for you, right? Like we all like to think we make our own path, but sometimes that path's created for us and paved for us and put guardrails around it so that you can only go in one direction. So we got a few minutes left. Want to say that for the folks at home, make sure to look up Act 3. Vote has some great resources on their website, and so make sure to check out voiceoftheexperience.org. Vote's website has some great resources. I think one of the things that I want to impart on people at home is that all of these constitutional amendments, they're very impactful in many different ways. And so one of the things that very often the legislature wants is for you to not act, for you to not vote, for you to not make your voice heard.
Right.
And so make sure March 29th you make your voice heard. Make sure you are educated and you vote, because what the legislature is wanting to do is to take power out of your hands and put it in their hands.
That's right.
And so we're here to help encourage people and try to inform the public and make sure everybody is able to get out and vote.
Yes.
So we got what's coming up on our next episode of From Chains to Change?
On the next episode, we're gonna. So what's happened is we have decided to start our year off trying to encourage people to pay more attention to their mental health, physical health, and spiritual health. So on our next episode, we're going to be talking about physical health, because we have the whole rest of this year that we have to stay alive.
Yes,
right?
we do.
Because we have to wake up, we have responsibilities, we have kids, we have everything to lose. So we have to figure out a way for us to be able to stay in this fight. So our next episode is going to be about physical health and how we can add some longevity and preserve ourselves for our kids' sake.
Absolutely. And our next vote meeting is when? I believe it's February 20th. It's February 20th. So make sure to join vote at the new office from 6 to 8 p.m. At Trendy Spaces.
Trendy Spaces.
And thank you, Acadiana, for another great episode of From Chains to Change. I am Dr. Matthew Green. I'm here with my partner,
Marcus Simmons. And look, no surrender,
no retreat.
no retreat.